They figured she was just another name on a list, an officer promoted beyond her worth. Quiet type. No scars to speak of, no rumors in the barracks, and definitely no sealed trident shining on her chest. To them, she was a checkbox, command's latest experiment, soft and simple to push around. So on a night rotation, they made their move, slow and calculated. Out of sight from the cameras, they loosened bolts, tampered with locks, and struck with enough force to bruise, but not enough to prove anything. They thought that would end it. What they never realized was she'd survived far worse before, and from that pain, she'd learned how to destroy reputations without raising her tone or lifting a hand. Before we show you the moment she flipped their trap back on them and dismantled 3 men without throwing a single punch, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and get ready. Because this time, discipline didn't just win, it made sure everyone remembered how she earned her stripes. The fog crawled low across Havenport Bay, thin and fast, sliding over the sand like it was trying to beat the sunrise. Visibility sat in that gray middle ground, not quite night, not yet morning, when the air tasted of salt and worn leather, and an idle Blackhawk's blades ticked faintly in the distance like a metronome no one thought to stop. Lieutenant Commander Kira Thane crossed the compound with her gear already packed tight. No escort, no greetings, just a matte duffel hanging from one shoulder and her name already printed in sharp black type on the assignment board. Thane, Lead Instructor, Combat Integration Rotation 2. Her uniform was bare of flair, tan fatigues, polished boots, hair tied back but never rigid. She didn't bother with sunglasses, even under the harsh coastal glare. Her steady eyes saw everything just fine. Behind the admin trailer, 2 instructors leaned against a shaded cart. One took a drag from his cigarette. The other didn't bother hiding his stare. That her? Yeah, Thane. Came out of some joint command deal, nobody's sure what kind. Figures. Probably another paper genius they're testing in the field. Let's see how she does when it's not theory. They laughed like the verdict was already in. Inside the mess hall, whispers rippled ahead of her like a wake before a ship's bow. A few glanced at her chest where ribbons might have sat. There were none. No sealed trident either, just the regulation eagle and anchors, simple, lawful, unadorned. When the morning brief gathered on the terrace at SO 700, the commanding officer spared her 5 sentences. 4 procedural, 1 dismissive shrug disguised as formality. Lieutenant Commander Thane will oversee field integration drills for the next 6 weeks. Her rotation will center on asymmetric combat leadership drills, the officer continued. Her previous deployments are sealed under joint operations, and all authority granted is verified by Central Command. No clapping, no polite nods, just the dry hum of silence. Kira Thane stood there, posture even, chin leveled, hands relaxed at her sides. Her gaze swept the group, not searching for approval, just taking mental inventory. One instructor leaned back, as if expecting someone taller. Another gave a half smile when she didn't acknowledge him. But the third, short-cropped hair, square jaw, name tag reading Danner, held her stare a beat too long. Not curiosity, not doubt. It was the cool calculation of a man deciding whether she could be broken. Kira said nothing. No questions, no reaction, just quiet composure. When the briefing ended, she turned toward the eastern field to walk the training course alone. No clipboard, no aid. The same 2 instructors from before now lingered by the lockers, their eyes tracking her movements. Doesn't talk much, one muttered. Doesn't need to, the other replied with a smirk. New officers always think silence makes them strong. Let's see how long that lasts. Simulation 3. After lights. And just like that, the test began. By late morning, the fog had burned away from Havenport's coast, leaving the sky a sharp, endless blue. Heat shimmered off the sand, stinging the eyes. A full unit of recruits stood in formation, breath ragged under weighted vests. Some bent over after the last drill, others clenched their jaws, praying she wouldn't call another round. Lieutenant Commander Kira Thane walked the line with calm precision, stopwatch in hand, but still. The crash of waves behind her pretended at peace, though every heartbeat on that beach was pounding. Front row, she said evenly. Bear crawl to the shoreline and back. Timer starts the moment your elbows hit the sand. A few groans slipped through the ranks. Before the order could take hold, a voice cut across the beach. You running this like a beach yoga retreat, Commander? It was Sergeant Danner. Arms crossed near the water trailer, sunglasses low on his nose, radiating boredom. His uniform looked inspection-ready, boots gleaming like he polished them more than he trained. Kira didn't turn. Excuse me? She said, voice only slightly raised. I said, Danner. Repeated louder, letting the recruits hear. This pace, these drills, half these kids did tougher warm-ups in high school wrestling. Nervous laughter rippled through the line. Kira pivoted and approached him, unhurried, clipboard still dangling at her side. She stopped just outside arm's reach. What's your proposal, Sergeant? He tilted his head, smiling. Maybe give them something real, something that separates leaders from tag-alongs. Unless we're handing out participation trophies this week. Silence. Even the waves seemed to pause. Kira looked down the line of recruits, then back at him. Sergeant Danner, she said clearly, you're assigned as support for the next 3 days. You'll run shoreline reps for row 2, 10 laps, full packs. Each time someone drops, you double back and escort them. The smirk faltered. That's not... It is now, she interrupted, her tone unbroken. Unless you'd like to challenge my authority in front of recruits during active rotation. Kira Thane said evenly, Shall I note your objection for the oversight board? The pause that followed was surgical, clean, precise. Danner blinked, squared his shoulders and gave a tight nod. No, ma'am. She didn't thank him, didn't acknowledge the shift in tone. Just turned back toward the formation. First row, go. As the recruits dropped into motion, sand spraying from boots and elbows. Danner watched her pass, not a twitch on her face. She hadn't raised her voice once, but somehow every trainee now looked at her differently. He muttered to the instructor beside him, She thinks she runs the place now. Then, quieter, before walking off, We'll remind her this isn't some classroom gig. The other man gave the smallest nod, enough to say, Tonight, then. Overhead, the lights in the instructor-ready room buzzed, one flickering weakly above the weapons rack. Danner leaned against a steel table, unwrapping a granola bar with deliberate calm. A muted TV looped heat map footage from a past drill, figures darting across obstacles. Staff Sergeant Cole sat opposite him, boots up on a crate. Shiuka, you really gonna do it? Cole asked. Do what? Danner Soin replied without looking up. Don't play dumb. I saw your face on the beach. Danner Suktum took a slow bite, chewing like it didn't matter. She embarrassed me in front of 50 recruits, followed protocol like it was a weapon. He finally met Cole's eyes. You think she can just stroll in here with her sealed file, skip the dirt work, give orders like she's Moses and we all salute? She's command. We're the backbone. That means no one climbs above us without earning it here. Silence stretched, thick with shared memory. Both men had survived the grinder, broken bones, nights without sleep, psych evals that cracked stronger men. Yet somehow this calm, unreadable officer had stepped into a top slot without a scar to show for it. Danner and had seen the type before. Clean boots, clean hands, nothing earned in mud. They never lasted, folded under pressure or got reassigned before the truth came out. But this one hadn't flinched, hadn't whined, hadn't raised her voice once. That made her either unbreakable or hiding something. And Danner didn't believe in unbreakable. Just rattle her, Cole Hankto said finally. No damage, shake her pedestal a little. Danner nodded. No bruises, no witnesses, just pressure. Pressure shows what people are hiding. He pulled up the obstacle course map on the wall screen. Simulation 3B, night rotation. No helmet cams after 2100, standard rule. He tapped the cargo net tower. This rig's still on soft inspection. Swap one of the mid-beams with a dummy bar. It won't show up on the checklist. She drops a few feet, gets a scare, backs off. Learns her place. Cole Hankto rubbed his jaw. And if she doesn't? Danner's smile was razor thin. Then we make sure she does. Just then, the door creaked open. Trainee Haynes stepped in, still damp from drills, helmet tucked under his arm. You wanted to see me, Sergeant? Danner's tone softened, practiced. Yeah, come in, sit. Haynes glanced at Cole, then eased onto the bench. Got a simple task for you tonight. Danner's Tutiko said. Shadow the tower sequence. Help reset the rig after each climb. Routine safety observation. Haynes, Titunindu, frowned. I thought the tower was cleared for solo runs. It is. Danner Wishun replied smoothly. But new leadership means extra oversight. We don't want her thinking we're unprepared, do we? Danner Huss asked, voice low and deliberate. Haynes shook his head slowly. No, Sergeant. Good man. Danner reached into his duffel, pulled out a small toolkit, and slid it across the table. Swap the bolt on the mid-beam during the first climb. Just loosen it halfway, no one will notice. It won't break, just drop a little. Enough to spook her. Haynes's fingers tightened around the edge of the bench. And if she gets hurt, she won't, Danner said smoothly. Koldanas added, We're not monsters. You want her respect, right? She won't respect you unless she earns it the hard way. That line stuck. It always did. Haynes nodded once, hesitant but obedient, and took the toolkit. When he left, the door shut with a hollow thud that lingered. Danner leaned back against the table, cracking his knuckles. No one leads before they crawl first. Outside, the floodlights poured over the obstacle field like artificial daylight, bleaching out every shadow. Generators hummed low, boots crunched over the sand. Night training at Havenport always ran tight. One rotation, minimal oversight, strict comms control. Lieutenant Commander Kira Thane stood near the signal flag. Her voice didn't need volume. Every word landed sharp. Tonight's drill is live contingency simulation. Cargo net, breach wall, low crawl, evac drag. Instructors shadow from Quadrant 2. Danner, Cole, and Haynes stood behind the recruits, already geared up. No cameras tonight, no observers, just a run by the book. On paper, everything looked routine. But Kira's Instincts told her otherwise. She swept the course with her eyes. The gravel looked slightly off. She made a note of it, said nothing. The first phase went smoothly. Crawls, vaults, rope swings. A few trainees stumbled, one clipped a shin, nothing unusual, but the inconsistencies began to stack. One rope was cut half an inch shorter than spec. A grip post wobbled under load. A timing mat flickered mid-run. She cataloged it all silently. At the tower base, she called out, "Next wave, I'll take lead on the climb." She grasped the rails and started her ascent. Precise hands, steady boots, no wasted motion. Halfway up, a sudden jolt. The mid-beam snapped with a sharp, metallic pop. She dropped 6 feet down the incline, hit hard on her shoulder, and rolled. It wasn't enough to break bone, but the impact stunned her, sent white flashes across her vision. She braced herself to rise, but they were already there. Danner crouched first, tone feigning concern. "You all right, Commander?" His grip on her arm was just a bit too tight. She didn't respond. Cole Kalma stepped in next, smirking. "Shouldn't be climbing cold, liability move." Then his boot nudged her side, not quite a kick. "Need a medic or just some air?" he muttered. She sat up slowly, steady. "I'm fine." Danner leaned closer. "Just checking, Commander. Making sure you can handle the gear. Out here, it doesn't care about resumes." She stayed silent. That's when the tone shifted. Danner offered his hand to help her up, but as he pulled, his elbow slid into her ribs, controlled, precise. Not enough to knock her down, but enough to hurt. She didn't flinch. Cole moved next, pretending to misstep. His leg swept low, catching her off balance. She hit one knee, caught herself. Eyes locked on both men. Haynes stood frozen at the edge of the circle, watching. Danner's voice came again, calm and cutting. "This is how we learn, Commander, under pressure." Pain pulsed through her side, but she rose. 3 against 1. No cameras, no witnesses, except there was. Her eyes flicked once toward the tower's upper junction box, a small maintenance sensor, motion activated, required after the last safety audit. They'd forgotten it was there, or never knew, but she had. She'd walked the course on day 1, checked every sensor, every backup, every buried failsafe tucked in the margins of official inspection reports. They stepped back, laughing like it was all harmless fun. No shouting, no bruises that would show. Just practiced pressure disguised as discipline. It was plausible deniability wearing a uniform. What they didn't notice were her eyes, steady, cold, counting each step, memorizing every motion. Kira Thane didn't survive joint ops by reacting. She survived by studying, by remembering. By 2200, the generators wound down, and the floodlights faded one by one until only the sodium lamps at the far edge of the compound threw soft gold across the gravel. The recruits were gone. The instructors had filed their reports, and no one mentioned what had happened. Kira walked the full course alone, her shoulders stiff, her ribs flaring each time she breathed deep. Her flashlight swept across the spot where she'd fallen, a shallow dent in the dust, half covered in boot prints. Hers tangled with theirs like the marks of an unfinished fight. She crouched, tracing the damaged beam. It still hung loose, sliced clean through the reinforcement screw. Not wear, not age, intent. A soft click of her tongue cut the silence before she straightened and kept walking. In her quarters, the air conditioner hummed steady. She peeled off her jacket carefully. A bruise bloomed across her ribs, purple fading to yellow at the edges. A thin cut ran along her shoulder where the gravel tore her uniform. Nothing that wouldn't heal. She pressed a cold pack against her side and sat at the metal desk, the tablet's glow her only light. Entry, 2304 hours, she said quietly. Training Simulation 3, mechanical failure, mid-beam collapse, 6-foot fall, shoulder trauma, immediate response, 3 instructors. Danner. First contact, Cole, second. Unknown observer, no witnesses. Suspected manual interference. Her tone stayed flat. No anger, no tremor, just evidence. She stopped the recording, saved it under maintenance inquiry, then opened a blank note and wrote 3 words at the top. Names, motive, pattern. Outside, a patrol truck rumbled by, headlights slicing through the blinds. She leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. A memory surfaced uninvited. Another desert, another ambush. The same betrayal disguised as teamwork. Different field, same principle. Never react when they expect you to. Never fight where they can bury it. She closed her eyes, breathing through the pain until her pulse matched the rhythm of it. By 2330, she had rewrapped her ribs, replaced the ice with gauze, and stood before the mirror. The bruise looked vicious. Her stare did not. They think I'm their lesson, she murmured to her reflection. A faint, humorless smirk tugged at her lip. They just became mine. She switched off the light, left the tablet charging, and lay down fully dressed, boots still on. Outside, Havenport slept. Inside, she didn't. The next morning, sunlight slid over the base in thin amber lines, glinting across asphalt and barracks windows. The drill yard buzzed early, boots striking pavement, metal clanging, shouts echoing. But the admin wing stayed calm. Lieutenant Commander Kira Thane entered with a rolled logbook under one arm and her sling bag over the other. She moved as though nothing had happened. Back straight, stride even, face unreadable. If anything, she looked sharper than the day before. Her name still hung second on the instructor board, right beneath Danner's in the maintenance office. Chief Rowan Chukun was hunched over a monitor, a coffee cup steaming beside him, a torque wrench tucked behind his ear. "Morning, Commander," he said without looking up. "Heard the course ran hot last night." She stepped in lightly. "Noticed a few oddities? Tower beam failed mid-run." That got his attention. He turned, brow furrowing. "That beam's reinforced. It shouldn't have gone." "Can I see the log?" she asked, calm but firm. "Sure," he said, tapping keys. The screen blinked to life, pulling up the entry. Under course structure, Tower Unit 3B, the monitor displayed a trail of system edits. Manual calibration override, 19 hours. User ID, Instar Danner. Safety lock disengaged, 1937. Secondary override logged by Inster Cole. Chief Rowan Kokitaku blinked. "Huh? Expected those?" Kira Thane's Huan tone was neutral, measured. "No," he said slowly. "Those overrides shouldn't even be possible outside technician access. Someone must have used an old terminal we never wiped." She nodded once. "Could you send me a copy of that log?" He hesitated. "You thinking of filing a report?" "Just reviewing my own training data," she replied evenly. "But if I need the files later..." Rowan sighed, already transferring the data. "Copying now." She accepted the drive with a curt nod, turned, and left without another word. Before heading to the canteen, she stopped at the operations hub, a small room with 3 terminals, one always idle during morning rotations. Logging in under her command clearance, she accessed the motion sensor archives for Tower Unit 3B, timestamp 2241 to 2254 hours. 13 minutes of footage. The file was grainy infrared, but clear enough. 3 figures circling a fourth, coordinated, deliberate. She copied it to the same drive, wiped her session history clean, and stepped back into the sunlight as if she'd only checked the day's forecast. Down at the canteen, Danner sat with Cole, and 2 others, trays scattered, empty wrappers tossed aside. Their voices were low, but arrogance had a way of carrying. Still seated. Cole nodded toward the quad where Kira crossed. "Give it time," he muttered. "The ones who act like steel always crack clean," Danner replied. Across from them, Haynes sat hunched, poking at his breakfast, silent. Danner caught his eye. "You did good," he said. "Smooth run." Haynes didn't answer. His food was untouched. "She hasn't said a word." Colby Tomb. Cull added, "No report, no medical visit, nothing. It's done." Danner drained his water bottle, tossed it in the bin. "That's the thing about officers like her," he said, starting to walk toward the field. "They don't bark." He smirked. "They wait." He didn't realize she already had. Just after noon, a new announcement appeared on the board outside the ops hub, printed and pinned without commentary. Live evaluation, instructor assessment, drill. Time: 1600 hours. Course: Simulation 3B, Field Rotation Audit, Lead Demo Team. Instar Danner, Inster Cole, Trainee Haynes. Observer: Letting CMDR Kira Thane. No message, no warning, no fanfare. But by 1400, nearly every instructor not deployed hovered near the quad. No one had been ordered to attend. They were just drawn by the shift in the air. Danner stared at the sheet like it was bait. Observer? That's it? Colesell gave the paper a tap. Standard evaluation. Probably wants to see her little reforms under pressure. Danner grinned, pulling on his gloves. Then let's give her a show. By 1600, the sun had tilted west, stretching shadows across the course. A mobile command van now sat at the field's edge, cameras mounted high. Inside, 2 SEAL instructors manned the monitors, one syncing the wireless feed to a large outdoor display behind the staging tent. Off-duty recruits gathered behind hazard tape, forming a silent arc. It wasn't just curiosity, it was tension. Everyone sensed something was about to break. Danner, Cole, and Haynes stood at the course entrance, helmets secure, earpieces checked, posture perfect. Lieutenant Commander Kira Thane arrived without a sound. Same desert fatigues. No medals, no clipboard, just a slim data tablet in her right hand. Her left shoulder was still stiff beneath her uniform, the bruise beneath healing but visible. She gave a single nod to the technician beside the display. Load sensor map, she said calmly. Run dataset, simulation 3B, 2 nights ago. The screen blinked to life. A real-time schematic of the obstacle course flickered onto the display. Digital overlays, timestamps, user logs, all aligning in neat, merciless order. Danner's name appeared first, then Cole's, each action tagged and recorded. Beam override. Safety lock disengaged. ID verification. The screen pulsed with evidence. Not dramatized, just undeniable. A ripple moved through the watching crowd. Whispers spread, then fell into uneasy silence. One senior instructor stepped forward, squinting at the data before glancing toward Danner. Realization settling across his face. Not fury, just the quiet understanding of someone recognizing something rotten too late. Another instructor turned away entirely, unwilling to be seen near what was unfolding. Danner Dactino froze mid-motion, half into his harness. Cole's one hand stalled on his helmet strap. Haynes until looked like the air had left his body. Then, Kira Thanes Drutjazerm, voice came through the comm feed. Steady, controlled. You will now rerun the drill exactly as you did that night. Same rig, same sequence, same teamwork. Danner glanced toward her, searching for some clue that this was a warning, not an execution. But her face didn't move. No expression, no twitch, only calm precision. What the hell is this? Coldheims hissed. What's she doing? Danner's eyes stayed fixed on the red highlighted logs flashing his own ID. She's not doing anything, he muttered. She's just letting everyone else see. Behind them, the crowd grew. Senior officers, 2 commanders, a JAG aide in plain clothes, watching, listening. Kira stepped off the platform, walking toward the tower until she stood just short of regulation distance from Danner. The logs don't lie, she said quietly, and neither will your next move. Then she turned toward the crowd. Not to explain, not to accuse, but to let silence sharpen the edges. Because some takedowns didn't need fists. They needed facts, timing, and absolute surgical calm. The debrief room was cold enough to sting. A stainless steel carafe of untouched coffee sat on the table like a forgotten prop. Across the wall, the paused log still glowed faintly. 1 red line, 3 names, 1 timestamp. Captain Harlow stood at the head of the table, arms locked behind his back, posture carved from authority. Beside him, Lieutenant Myers, JAG observer, had his tablet open, stylus motionless. Danner, Cole, and Sekanil Daisi. Haynes sat in a tense row. No uniforms now, just undershirts and nerves. Danner's leg bounced. Cole's jaw was rigid, trembling. Haynes sat still, hands flat on his thighs. Harlow didn't need to raise his voice. Lieutenant Commander Thane submitted digital logs, medical documentation, and a verified equipment trace from Chief Rowan. All cross-checked by timestamp and operational access logs. He turned the screen toward them, replaying the sequence. The override, the safety lock disengage, Danner's ID, then Cole's, then silence. No malfunction, no fatigue failure, no miscommunication. Harlow said. Danner opened his mouth, but Kira's gone. Voice cut through from the doorway before he could speak. Miscommunication doesn't leave bruises in formation pattern. Heads turned. She hadn't been announced, but she was there, standing against the door frame, arms folded, eyes steady. She stepped forward and placed a printed report on the table in front of Meyer. The top sheet showed photographs, dark bruises, a compression wound, each marked with a timestamp. 22 hours, simulation 3B. Meyer Batikser flipped through the pages silently and nodded once. Harlow looked back at Us Danner. You assaulted a superior officer during live prep rotation using premeditated sabotage in the presence of a witness. Danner's octave voice cracked. She had it coming. Harlow's jaw tightened. Is that your statement? I mean, she came in like we owed her respect she hadn't earned. Correction. Harlow said, tone flat as steel. She came in with rank orders and the discipline you failed to model. He turned to Pasink Meyer. Effective immediately, Sergeant Danner, relieved of duty. Discharge proceedings commence at 0800. Staff Sergeant Cole, accessory sabotage. Administrative separation recommended. Captain Harlow's AUK voice didn't rise, but the sentence hit harder than any shout. Then he turned his gaze to Chukin. Haynes. You stood by but eventually came forward. Late but honest. You'll be pulled from this rotation. Your officer commission is rescinded. Haynes's throat moved once. He managed only a nod. Harlow tapped the monitor dark. Dismissed. Chairs scraped, no protests, no excuses, just the slow rhythm of consequence. Outside, the afternoon sun hung heavy behind the admin wing, stretching long shadows over the courtyard. Word had already spread. Instructors avoided her eyes. Recruits straightened their posture. At the far end of the field, Kira Thane Botzer walked with measured calm. Danner passed her, not close, but close enough. She didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He just kept moving, shoulders tight, chin low, stripped of rank, reputation, control. And Kira kept walking forward. Evening settled over. Havenport. Painting the training grounds in streaks of amber and fading blue. The ocean wind softened. The base fell quiet, as it always did after reckoning. The cargo net tower stood rebuilt in the center of the field, reinforced, steady, innocent-looking, to anyone who hadn't been there 2 nights before. Lieutenant Commander Kira Thane Osser stood beneath it alone, one gloved hand resting on the lowest rung, not climbing, just anchoring herself to the reminder that she'd outlasted it. Didn't think you'd come back here, a voice said behind her. Senior Chief Dwyer, one of the few instructors untouched by Danner's circle, a veteran, observant. I never left, Kira Maut replied. He stepped beside her, eyes following the height of the tower. You could have pressed for court-martial, made headlines. But you didn't. I didn't need punishment, she said quietly. I needed the system to remember. Remember what? That respect isn't something you shout for. It's what comes back to you when you carry it. Dwyer, though, nodded. Well, they remember now? A long silence stretched between them, not heavy, just full. Across the field, a formation of new recruits passed by. As they neared the tower, one stepped slightly out of line, offering a small nod. Then another. Then one more. No applause, no words, just small gestures, quiet acknowledgement. Respect earned the hard way. Kira let her hand fall from the rung and stepped into the path where shadow met floodlight. Her stance was the same as day one, spine straight, breath steady, face unreadable. But now no one laughed, no one speculated, and no one mistook her silence for weakness ever again. If someone tried to break you just to teach a lesson, would you fight back immediately? Or wait and let the proof end them for you? And do you believe silence, the kind that watches, collects, and strikes when it hurts most, can finish a career faster than revenge ever could? Drop your answer in the comments. We read everyone. Then tap like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new mission. Share this story with someone who still thinks discipline looks like weakness. And by now, your next story should already be on screen, so go ahead and watch that next. We'll see you tomorrow on Old Bill's Tales.